All right, hello Facebook, hello Instagram, and hello also those listening on the podcast. Hello also those listening retrospectively to the replay on YouTube as well. I hope you're having a great Monday, and welcome to Startup Business Q&A. So this is episode 137 weeks of this. I know there'll be some people watching for the first time because we've been promoting this elsewhere in the last few days. And today, you guys have voted for a session focused on how to warm cold prospects or cold audience. So thank you so much everyone for jumping in. James, good to see you. Mona, good to see you. Kodaryl as well. I know you were in touch with me on Instagram recently, so great to see you here. Thanks a lot. Sharon Teled, good to see you there as well. And everyone else jumping in right now. It's brilliant to see. So look, Nika, nice to see you here as well. After I think we connected on LinkedIn recently. So whilst I'm just kind of loading a few things up here and there, I just wanted to share that the poll was really close. So the choices were this one, of course, which was warming a cold audience, but also on pattern interrupt for a second week. It looks like no one quite wants that one enough. It was literally the 24 hours of voting. It was neck and neck. And I think in the end, if I combine the votes from Instagram, yes, indeed, if I combine the votes from Instagram and from Facebook, there was one vote in it. That was it, just one. It was something like, 15 votes to 16 or something like that. So thanks everyone for voting, and so as a result this is for you. Thanks also for the questions you've submitted already. If you have a question on how to warm a cold audience, then do jump in and share. What I want to do is just give you a bit of background first. So I actually I was first selling and working with marketing in 2002, 2003 time, and I was selling internet marketing. So that was really good fun, and I learned how to warm a cold audience because it was literally cold calling CEOs and managing directors. And whilst nowadays I prefer the warm approach, who doesn't, right? It's a lovely way to do it. There are some things that I speak to corporates every day about, and when I coach them, and I certainly focus a lot on how to get that warming going. There is some science. There is some there's some kind of some formulas and all that kind of stuff I can share a bit as well. So firstly, hi everyone jumping in. James, I will vote more than once to get pattern interrupt. Yeah, just set up some fake Facebook accounts and then you can vote more than once for it. Maybe next week, James. Fred Caserta, nice to see you here as well. In fact, if we want to have pattern interrupt next week, I could just do it, or you guys, I could give you like an alternative topic to vote against, which is like nothing to do with this, and you hopefully you won't do it, but you never know. There's always sabotage here and there as well. Nika, thanks so much. Good morning to you as well. I think you're over in Wisconsin, if I'm right. Could everyone just write in which city they're in? I love seeing that there's people all over the world, and the irony always is that there's very few people in the UK who watch this. It tends to be more far overseas, and people catch up a bit later from the UK because obviously they're having their lunch right now. So let's get into the questions. First one is from James Perry, because you're live here with us on Facebook. When you're talking to a prospect, they ask about price, then they appear stunned when you tell them about the investment they have to make. So the question I suppose here is, what do you do? Now, the best way to handle any problem or objection, in this case as it's known, is preemptively. What I mean by that is the best way to handle it is that it never comes up in the first place. And if your price is met with surprise or worry or concern by the prospect, it simply means that they were expecting the price to be lower based on the perception, because it always is a perception of value that you have currently given them. Okay, that's how it works. So if this is about feedback, James. This is about you saying to yourself, I'm going to accept responsibility, because this kind of feedback's amazing. It allows you to say, do you know what? I didn't do what I should have. I didn't kind of crush the value as much as I could. If someone's saying, wow, that's a lot of money, or all that's expensive, okay, which is just subjective, of course, but if they say things are expensive, It means that in the journey to this point, as you are warming them up and telling them about your proposition, they haven't felt that it wasn't worth what you're offering. So for instance, if I'm offering a service that I charge $1,000 for and they think it's too expensive, quote unquote, then what that means is how I've said it and positioned it in their worldview is too expensive for what I've been describing. That doesn't mean it is too expensive. It means how I've positioned it is too expensive. There's a difference there because it's always subjective. It's always just what someone's view is, whether or not it's actually too much or not. So there are a number of techniques here, James, and I will talk about how to handle this retrospectively. But firstly, to preemptively strike against this, a great technique to use is to create a different backdrop. So frame this so that the price you're going to give isn't as high as they thought it might be. And the way you do that is you hint that there might be a slightly higher price than it actually is. If someone feels like it's going to be a certain amount and then it isn't, that really helps. It's actually helped me a little earlier. Last week, there was a service provider I was engaged with. I expected their service to be way more expensive than it turned out to be, and so I felt quite comfortable. Arguably, it could be seen as really expensive anyway, but that's not the way to look at it. So one way to do this is to use the 3 price approach. And what you're doing is as you're building value and sharing what you're offering, you can just drop into conversation that, hey, there was someone recently, I'm sure there would be, who thinks this service is outrageous and in fact it should be, and then you give some mad amount, typically 4 times higher than what you're actually charging. It's a throwaway comment, but what it does is it drops a little bit of information into their subconscious that someone out there thinks this is great and actually is worth this much money. But what you do is you instantly say, but don't worry, it's not that kind of, it's nothing like that. It's just someone really feels it's worth that much. Then carry on. What's happened is it's almost so incidental that they never really pick up on that moment. But what you have done is you've coached the subconscious a bit that there is a upper limit of crazy price that it isn't. So say for instance my service is 6,000 quid and I drop in that someone thought this is a mad, amazing service and really it should be 20. But don't worry, it's not 20,000. It's just that someone thinks it should be. In their head, they now know, okay, this service won't be 20,000 when we get to the price. That's not a conscious dialogue they've had, but it's just a moment they will think of and then move on from. What you then do, the second price is a bit later on. This works so well. A bit later on, just before you give your price, you talk about how the price may be going up soon. And it will, right? Why wouldn't your price go up in the near future if it's doing well or if the service improves or inflation or whatever it might be? And you simply suggest the price is about 30 or 40% higher than it actually is going to be. So maybe my £6,000 price point, it's not going to be 20, of course. We've already said that's the outrageous one. I'll say, you know what? But the price will be going up quite soon because of a number of specific reasons, and I actually give what they are rather than, otherwise it sounds a bit rubbish otherwise. And say, and we're looking at something around like a $9,500, $10,000 price point. However, the good news is it's only 6. And what happens now is because of the backdrop of someone saying, wow, 20 is crazy, and actually, 10 is where you're going to go. When you drop in that the price will be around $9,500 to $10,000 soon, that person is thinking about a price point around then, thinking must be around 8 then, or something like that. So when you drop in at 6, suddenly it doesn't feel like that much. And so price as an quote unquote expensive thing is relative. And it's all based on perception. If all cars, right, cost $400,000, then a $100,000 Ferrari isn't much money by comparison. Do you see what I mean? Whereas if all cars, as they do, cost $20,000 or $30,000, then a $100,000 Ferrari is relatively more expensive, and it seems crazy. But the difference is zero. The price is not changed at all. It's a backdrop instead. So that's a really important consideration, is the backdrop to that pricing, and that will help James, with the preemptive strike there. Thank you everyone for jumping in. Before I get on to the second part of your question, Jason White, Carolina, Karen, great to see you here. James Perry representing from Ireland. I hope that helped a little bit to start with on your question. Lila, nice to see you on Instagram. Magda Alessandra, yeah, great. I'm glad you liked that as well. Free 5A, Kishore, you're here as well. And Sharon, a lot of people over in the States. Great to see you here. Now let's get into the second part of this. So I mean, that's one thing you can do. And look, the other thing is good, James, it's just, it's just good feedback. You weren't interesting enough. Right? And this is really brutal, but sometimes you've got to say to yourself, if the guy thinks it's expensive, then the proposition of value isn't interesting enough. Simple as that. What I suggest strongly before giving a price is you should always pre-close someone. So you've given the value, you've expressed and connected with them, you've expressed what the value is going to be, you've worked with them, and you kind of built around needs and so on. It makes sense to say, just stopping the boat at this point, in principle, as a concept, what do you think? What do you think of the value? And if the guy's like, wow, this is awesome, I really like it, now we're in a place where we can say, great, well, if you like it in principle, here's the package we have on offer, here's the price, if you like. Whereas, if you bundle it all together, you're not separating value from price, and it makes sense to do that to see whether or not they want to, go any further. The reason why I'm suggesting this, James, is because if you say to someone, so here's the offering in general, before I get into the package and the price, what do you think in principle? And they're like, it's all right, I suppose. Then I wouldn't want to give them the price, because I'm now going to give them the price against something they don't care about. Go back in and work harder to sell a bit better. So that's important to understand. I think that's one of the crucial mistakes people make, is they try and close someone who actually doesn't care yet. And you can't close someone, and that's when you get silly things happening, like trying to discount in the deal, which is just stupidity when someone doesn't want to do it. So they need to be sold on value first. But when you're talking to them and they ask about price and they appear stunned about the investment, just stop and say, and this is the direct answer to your question, if that does happen, be candid. Say, James, normally at this point people are quite impressed. I seem to have dropped the ball here. What am I missing? Where did I lose you? Get them to be open. Being candid is great, because people don't play games when you're candid. You're being nice and direct, and it suggests they should be. And if they give you a pithy answer, this is what you should say. If someone gives you a pithy answer, they're giving you a bit of a soft no. They're letting you down gently. You just say, okay, and what's the real answer? Well, that does, it goes, come on, give me the real truth. And then people always follow through and give you the truth. And it really matters, because now you're in a place where you can see where you missed out on building the value for them. Sometimes people think things are expensive because of silly reasons and tiny reasons. Sometimes they didn't hear you right on the price. I had one once when the guy thought what I was offering was outrageous, because he thought it was the monthly price, but it was a yearly price. He was like, oh, okay, well, that's fine then. So you just got to check, that's the thing as well. Just a question here from Nika Redding. Richard, we'll be talking about the best way to follow up after attending network event or group. Yes, let's cover that in a second. Absolutely, it's a really good point. That's if you've attended, and just check if I'm right here, Nika. That's if you've attended a networking event, how to follow up with people that you've perhaps met there. Got it. Karen, nice to see you. Diana over in Melbourne, nice to see you as well. Thank you very much for joining. So hopefully that helps. And how do you get them back on side even after that call, says James. So this is a really important point. And it's no different to if you're trying to sell, say, through DMs as well. If you're having a call, it all goes south. I would say, I've been around salespeople, probably thousands of them over the years. And one thing that people do is the moment that goes south, hello, Rigor, nice to see you, is that they go, oh, okay, no worries, thanks so much, and they leave. Even if they've been pushing a bit, they're just like, it's like game over, relationship stops dead. It's just madness. Because in 2019, what you have, if you do a good job of warming someone up and they feel good about you, is even if there's no sales, you potentially have an advocate or someone who's going to be in orbit around you. So many people I've spoken to and weren't necessarily a deal at the time, but I've left on good terms because it means that the relationship, or rather their perception, is that the relationship is really important. And what that does is it means that they stick around, and it means in turn they feel better about you. They might even start sharing that you're out there to their friends and network, or in fact come back into the loop. So what I'm saying here is watch out, be very careful about this idea of going, okay, you're not interested, okay, no worries, thanks so much for your time, then leave it at that. That's crazy. What you want to do instead is demonstrate, because this should be the case actually, but demonstrate that actually the relationship here is worth more than the deal right now. Because look, the deal right now might be worth a load to you, but the relationship itself is worth more. And I don't mean that in some twee way. What I mean is the relationship is worth more because if you do a good job with this deal or not, they might end up buying bigger things in the future or telling people about you. And I'm talking about this with authority because I've done this a lot in the past. I've had a lot of people work with me who are worth so much more in the future. That really, really matters. And maybe they don't spend much to begin with, if anything. So what you want to highlight is that when you've completed the call, or if it's not going to happen, that you still suggest strongly that you're going to be, your call on the relationship. So if they, if it's like as simple as this, James, if they say, do you know what? It's just not quite right for us right now. No problem at all. No problem. Let's carry on the conversation. Maybe they need to go, cool, but there should be a message. I would follow up straight away. I would send them a voice message, for instance, and say something like, James, thanks so much for the call. No worries if it's not right for you right now. I saw that you did this thing recently, or I love that you're going to be going to that event, or, thanks for showing up to the live stream or whatever it is. And just something else. Make sure you continue the conversation and that relationship in the days and weeks ahead, because what you mustn't do, which happens inherently if you just shut down the relationship because they said no, what you mustn't do is give off this kind of vibe of, well, you said no, so it's over. And nothing screams, I was after your money more than you just killing the relationship there because they said no in that moment. It's far too short-termist, and it's far more effective again in 2019 if you spend some time focusing on doing the right thing, which is focusing on that relationship and building it even beyond a deal, or if there hasn't been a deal, okay? Because you never know who that person's going to be. Plenty of people who haven't bought from me have generated me a lot of business because, of course, they have made sure they've told their network because we've done a good thing together, maybe in terms of collaborating on a video instead, or having just a good relationship or a good chat. So just bear that in mind. People are worth more than when they open their wallet, or even when they don't. You need to think about the network they represent as well. Loads of people joining in here. I just want to say hi to Pelpina, Language Mate Limited, the guys who I was working with Warwick Business School. Nice to see you there. Omo, good to see you all the way from Luxembourg. Joe Webster representing the UK, good to see you. Patrick Laverne's here too. Bonsai, nice to see you. And let's get into Nika's question. James, really great way of starting us off. I hope that was helpful. Thanks so much. So Nika said, yes, I got their this is about warming up cold-ish prospects after a networking event. Anika said, yes, I've got their contact info, business cards, list after attending small group networking. I heard it'd be a good idea to send them an article, but the question is, what article if all these people are from different industries? And Shira, hello, nice to see you on Instagram as well. Here's what I'd say, Anika, without question, it's you set yourself up to win when you're doing the networking itself. What I do when I go to networking events is I try and avoid business cards. It's kind of good now. It's quite disruptive. I do this is all these events I go to, including my own, and I'm like, come on, what do you want a business card for? All you're going to do is take the business card when you get home, tap in my name into LinkedIn and connect with me. So let's do it now. So let's get the phone out. And there's something really, I said this recently actually on a post, there's something really great about getting shoulder to shoulder with someone and getting the phone out and saying, right, so which one's you? Because it's always fun when it's Richard Moore, because there's like, I'm common as muck. There's millions of Richard Moores. So when you type in Richard Moore, it's like, yeah, there's me. Oh, hang on, we're second connections. So who have we got mutual? Oh, I know that one. I did this recently. I was at an event. I was speaking at a business in the city, and I looked at this person's LinkedIn profile, we were connecting together, and it's like, oh, you know that person? It's like, they're my client, that's crazy. So we've gotten really well doing it like that. And I think, you know, you don't get that with the business card. You get, it's this stale, here you go, and I'll catch up with you later. Instead, engage, that's all you're going to do anyway. So, you know, get on the old phone. The best thing's when they get a crazy name. You know, when they've got this insane name, you're like, how do you spell that? Like Nika, I'll be like, Nika, what, is it Veronica? What, how do I say, oh, is it got a K, has it? We spell it with a C here. Reading, is that with an A? Or, you know, it'd be all good fun. And then you find them, and then you got your icebreaker. So that's what I would start doing at the events. Try not taking business cards. It's brilliant, because you get very small people who are like, what? But they're cool with it because it makes sense when you're like, come on, it's 2019, we're going to connect online, right? So let's do it. And then you've got, you know, what I would be doing is getting your phone out, hopping onto the Messenger app, for instance, in LinkedIn, and right there you've got the voice message. So I would simply say, hi, great to see you at the event today. It's Richard. I'm glad we were able to connect. Let's organise a call or a coffee. I'm free on Thursday. How does that look for you? Something like that. What you're suggesting here, or asking here, Nika, is would you send an article? I disagree. Whoever suggested that, I think, needs to bear in mind that you need to earn the right to send people articles. And this is the big fallacy, the mistake people make in content online, for instance, and it's the same for engaging with cold people. You need to take your cues from the offline world. Now, in the offline world, if you walked up to someone in the street, you'd say hi. You wouldn't go, here's an article about me. You'd actually engage them a bit and earn the right to give them an article. It would have to crop up in conversation. Hey, it's interesting you say that because I wrote an article about this thing. Oh, did you? Yes, I did. Would you be interested in reading it? Because it covers that thing that you just talked about. Yes. Yes, I would. Do you know what? I'll send it then. If you ram an article down someone's throat without earning the right, you've now moved them to a place where like, oh great, so spam then. So not interested. So you actually make this possibly lukewarm contact now quite cold, in my opinion, by putting things like that down their throat. The way to do it is to write something that is nuanced for them. So what you would need to do, for instance, with me, if we met at a networking event, was to write me a message and say, Richard, it's great to connect. I love that you're building these events. In fact, I think this is quite a good fit for me because of this thing. And then ask a question based on that person. And the way I look at it is this: if you're not willing to go to someone's profile and spend the 14 seconds necessary to just scroll down and read for a couple of particulars about that individual, then you're not willing to put in the effort to get a relationship. That's not me telling you off, Nika, because obviously you're asking a question. But what I mean is that if you actually think about it, like, where do we get the nerve to go for the ask, or to try and close something, or take things further, as in, like, you know, to take things to maybe a more of a commercial space with a relationship, when we've not bothered to actually put any effort into them? It suggests we just want the outcome, which is just a deal. But actually it's better to focus on a bigger relationship. That sounds cute, but the relationship contains deals normally. And it starts with us really giving them a bit more respect than you're a connection, but you're one of many. It should be, you're a connection, and I love that you do this one thing. So if I'm looking at people who are watching here, other than those I don't really know so well, I do make a point of trying to tune in and check them out and things like that. So if I look at Instagram, for instance, Girl Talk Cayman I know is Gianna. She's based in the Cayman Islands. She works with the Women's Network. She's running an event in December. Pelpina's over in the Netherlands, and she will be speaking with me live next week on Tuesday. That's a bit of an easy one. She's known as the Video Geek. Lila was on earlier. She's from Dallas. She and I both like cheese. You know, Shira is an interior designer. She's based over in the States. Knowing these things about people is because I've spent a modicum of time building a bit of interest. And as a result, you earn the right to actually have meaningful conversations with people. You do it offline. So don't go weird online anyway. Okay, so I hope that helps a little bit, Nika. Don't smash out articles. Have the organic one-on-one meaningful conversations, that takes longer, but that's a way to build it up. That's my view of things. If you're going for the volume approach, my friend Tiffany Parra over in San Francisco has just launched an epic 90s fashion trend again called scrunchies.co. I bought some already that were delivered on Saturday to my daughters. So there's a little bag of 90s style scrunchies for the hair with little kind of acid house emoji for smiley faces on them, you know, that's a perfect example of someone who kind of missing my point now, but that's a perfect example of someone who's trying to sell volume. They're not gonna, you know, it's not like she's trying to get 4 clients a month because they've got a $7,000 price point. These things are like $14. So as a result, for a pack of 3. So as a result, it's like she needs volume. So sure, she can't manually message people, but to start with, she can. She's just starting out. So, you know, to start with, she should be shutting herself in a room and messaging one person at a time. That's what I did for my events when I started them back last year. It was, I would literally manually message dozens and dozens and dozens of people, manually, including a little research on them, writing something meaningful with their name and so on. When you move to a point where you're trying to scale, sure, so do a run of ads and retargeting and things like that. I understand it, but to begin with, this is, especially after an event, how many people do you really network with in an hour? If you're good, 8, probably more like 6, because chats go on forever. Use the information you learn and focus in on that stuff. From there, you've lubricated the opportunity to get a great relationship and take it a lot further, a lot more rapidly. So I hope that helps a bit. Really good. I just scroll down and see what's going on down here on Facebook, the talk of cheese, I think. Nika, another follow-up on what you're talking about. How to keep track of all these people to keep relationships. You want this problem. You want the problem of too many people that you have a great relationship with. That's down to you, Nika. I have a bit of a weird memory where I kind of remember everyone. I remember my first ever deal in 2003 was Jack Van Milne. He was a managing director of a company called Marine Equipment Supply. It was 1,700 euros. Weird stuff like that, you know. But I think for normal people, just use a spreadsheet, use Google Slides, or something in LinkedIn, for instance. I think you can star people and things like that. For me, I would suggest you check something like Trello, actually. And what you can do is you can do cards. So like, this is a workflow tool, but it works really well personally, just for yourself. You can do a list of contacts you've got with the last date you're in touch with them. Oh, it's been 3 months for this guy, I need to just warm him up again, or something like that. Or, oh, she's been in touch with me a while back, she's quite hot, exciting as a prospect. I'll move her over to this column instead. So it might be something worth checking out. Omazoa, such a powerful message. Hang on, I'm scrolling too fast. There's so many messages. Good news. Such a powerful message. The moment I start to do this, things change in terms of building relationships. Yeah, put the effort in, basically. Dot Lung, good to see you here. Thank you so much. You're right on, Veronica. That's it. Daniel, good to see you here as well. Always add them on LinkedIn, but sometimes a small group, people around the table, more organized, and after meeting, everyone leaves, so end up with their cards. Sure. So if they leave with cards, you take the business card and you plug it into LinkedIn and you connect with them, and then you send them that message straight away. And if you can leave them a voice message, people always listen. They're like, oh, what's this? Because it's so novel. It only launched in like November last year. Leave them a little message with a, do you know what? That was so good to meet with you. I love how you said that thing earlier, and we should definitely hook up for some tea. Something that's interesting about it, like a little thing that they said, rather than, oh, we should have a coffee. Like, what were they drinking? Were they drinking lemon and ginger tea? Right, well, I'll have that. We'll talk, whatever it is, something that's an idiosyncrasy about that person is a lovely way of showing you care, because you've actually put a bit of effort into something they did. Leave the message. The follow-up is so valuable. Even if you've walked out of a meeting, you've already had a relationship, built a relationship with someone and had that meeting, jump in and have a quick, thanks so much for that. It was awesome to speak to you. And then maybe your next actions as well. Okay. So, team late for the live, says Daniel. Let's add on this. So, put in hashtag team live if you're watching right now, or if you're watching right now, but you're replaying, it's team replay. Daniel's started his own hashtag there, Team Late for the Live. Hope that helps, Nico. Thanks so much. Dotlung likes cheese as well. Well, specifically, Dotlung likes raclette, it seems, because you're a big fan of skiing. I'm well jealous about that. Fondue especially, in fact, you've written. DP Newton, good looking forward to seeing you, speaking to you later on today. I'd like to follow up with something about a topic we discussed face to face. Example, a guy last week regarding the Stoic philosophers. I'm a big fan of them. The likes of, what's the main one I'm thinking of? On the shortness of life. I've got it. Where have I got it? What's his name? I've gone completely blank. I can't remember. On the shortness of life, Seneca, for goodness sake. There we go. This is the book I read all the time. Guys, regarding Stoic philosophers, I'll send him an article about this topic. As I remember, we geeked out about this precisely that. You know, it's these little things that make the subconscious in that person remember and say to themselves, this is no dialogue that happens consciously, it's subconscious. They're like, oh wow, they just remembered. What a lovely thing. You know, when I'm in Tel Aviv next, for instance, in fact, I did this recently. I posted a photo of me eating sushi and wrote hashtag eat with Rich and sent it to Dotlung, because she has a hashtag eat with Dot, which is amazing on Instagram. And it's a little thing like that which shows you pay attention to people, and that goes a long way, and that cuts through when there's so much traffic in everyone's direction, people trying to connect with people. I would just suggest you look at the thing that matters. You know, another example, if I use Dotlung there, why not again? She was asking about who are great graphic designers, and I mentioned Sophia, who I think is watching right now, because she's done awesome design work for Dot. Like the fact that you pay attention about a secondary, like a supplier into someone's brand, that really makes a difference. Okay. Anyway, let's see what else we've got. Sophia is watching, of course. Great tools. You are awesome. Thank you very much. Rigor, it looks like you've got a point here. I swap stickers and business cards. I take photos of the business card and immediately take a selfie. I post the sticker on Instagram and tag the contact. Great idea. I always try and do that as well. So get a photo with the person, because what you're doing is you're saying to them, when they see that post with themselves, they're saying, I class you, or rather you're saying, I class you as social currency. And that's a massive compliment to someone. So I had a call the other day with someone. I took an Instagram of the two of us, and I posted it and tagged them. And this guy's like, oh my God, that's amazing. Thank you. Knowing that he's seen my account, he knows that I have an okay following. And as a result, he was really pumped by that. And as then again, social currency means I'm saying basically, not only am I sharing a picture of you and I, but I'm sharing it to a group of people as an accessory. I'm saying, here's someone I want to endorse, and that goes a long way, especially if you've got a decent following, I'd say. Can you live message on LinkedIn, says Nika. You can send video on Instagram. On all the platforms, you can send voice. But you can't go live and stream in someone's messenger on LinkedIn. Not yet. I think it's about 8 years ago on LinkedIn, to be honest. It'll be a while off, but that's what I would do. I think you're possibly asking if I can stream this live on LinkedIn soon is the answer. Not quite yet. We're down in the UK. Just checking anything else. Everyone likes cheese. That's good. Keep going. Marie Nankarug, nice to see you. I think it's your first time on here. Hi Richard, I always feel I have to justify the price of my garments. Presumably you sell. Okay, you do. They're all handmade from reclaimed denim. Cool. So the reason why someone will think, well, there's two reasons why people will think that your denim, Marie, is really worth it, is the perception of the garment being an amazing point of value, or ideally that there's a great story behind it. If you look at aftershave, or in fact other fashion labels and items of clothing, a lot of the time there's nothing special. Like this is a Ralph Lauren jumper, for instance. It's probably made in the same jumper factory as the next one. It's not made in Italy or anything like that. It's probably made in, where is it made? what, he's made in China or something like that. Yeah, made in China. Okay, so it's probably made in the same factory as any other jumper. Okay, but the reason why people see it as high value is because the cultural significance of the horse, probably, and as a result, you know, they feed that. The marketing department feeds that by aligning it with certain influencers and certain other kind of marks. And so what we need to be thinking is it's never the case of, well, here's how much it costs to make, here's how much margin I need to live, therefore this is the price. You need to think about the story around it. This is always about perception, Marie. So you can warm up, just keep this tight with the topic for today, you can warm up a cold audience about your product and make them feel, do you know what, this must be worth a load. If you've got a story behind it, that actually this is really worth a lot. And worth is a perception, and something's worth more if it's endorsed by an important person. If Kim Kardashian, might not be the person you're necessarily trying to target or demographic that person represents, but if Kim Kardashian endorsed TitanicDenim.com, then suddenly its stock goes up. You know, the value of it in this as a perception is higher, and that's because not just that person has clout, but that person represents a particular part of a story or type of story. So that's something to bear in mind. So you might want to look at courting influencers, or at the very least, you should be doing anyway, share the story behind why you're doing it. And when people like your story, and of course there's things like testimonials and advocates for your product as well, it goes a long way to convincing people that, yeah, it makes sense, this is worth a lot more. You know, when you buy a pair of jeans in a shop that are $200 instead of $20, it's because you feel there's something about the story you're buying. Read Seth Godin, he'll explain it in much better terms than I can, but hopefully that makes a difference. Just checking if there's any more messages, and then we'll crack on. Jason Ellinger, nice to see you here as well. And we just check. Shane Wallace is here too. Awesome. Yes, hopefully that helps. Maria, questions over on Instagram. Brett Bailey, what is the best way to get through to people through social media to really get your message across? So, Brett, in 2019, the play I use is that it is all content that provides value, tips, you know, and essentially starts a conversation around the services that I provide. So for instance, meaningful online engagement, converting whatever you do into commercial, so selling stuff, and effective engagement with people. Those kind of topics, if I share value on that, the play is a longer one than a kind of a quick try to get a transaction then and there. But the idea, Brett, is that by working to produce content like that, it creates gravity around me. That acts as a magnet because it is pressure free for people to consume it for free. They're not being told to do anything. They don't have to log in. There's no paywall. There's no pain. It's a very convenient and streamlined way to get great value into people. And what I'm trying to do really is, sure, share value, but also speak to the subconscious. I'm speaking to that part of the person that's like, do I like this person? Do I want to kind of build familiarity with them? That I'm speaking to the person coming into my content on a deeper level than practically. Being practical with value and tips, Brett, is the device. But the real play is to make someone feel like I'm approachable and to tune in again. And the term I use there is to get them into orbit around me. Because when they do come into orbit, so there's some more, this person's interesting. Oh, look, there's some more content. I'll consume that as well. What's happening is you're coaching the human part of them that craves to be familiar and be social with people, that actually you're a good person. Doesn't always work. Because there'll be people out there like, who's this English idiot, not interested, and shut me off, no problem. But there'll also be people who are like, this is really useful, I really like his stuff, and whatever it might be. And so I'll tune in again. Now, the way to really get your message across is to warm people in this way so they feel good about you. What's interesting is that the more familiar people are with you, as in the more they get used to seeing your face and hearing your voice and what you're talking about, as long as your signal that you put out is pure and you focus on the right thing, the more you do that, the more there's trust. And the more there's trust, the more people will exercise curiosity and want to check you out and learn about you. So if you really want to get your message across, you can do it through a number of means, but I think the best way to get a message across that's going to really take with people is that you actually do it in a way in which people consume you as much as possible. It doesn't mean in an eat with dot way. What it means is in as much as possible in a human way. Ideally, you meet everyone who would ever come into orbit around you face to face, but that's not practical or efficient. What you can do is share with video like this. What you can do is use voice. You know, if there's a podcast, for instance. The play with podcasts is really simple. People get used to you. They think you're great, so they keep tuning in. What happens is that builds a bias that reinforces you positively. Therefore, when you do move to an ask, or when they stumble across an ask, because it might not be that you're saying, hey, buy my stuff. It might be if they find their way to your website, they can buy your stuff. What happens is there's a natural inclination, Brett, to lean in and to buy. It is literally the same as someone who follows a football team. If you follow them week in, week out, you love your football team, you stand behind them come what may, what happens is whenever something like maybe there's a foul or something like that on the pitch, you see the best in your football team and you see the worst in others. It was never a handball. It was never a penalty if it goes against your team, because you're seeing your team in good favour. Because you want to, you've conditioned yourself that way, and that's kind of what's happening here. So the best way to get through to people on social media is to use something that allows them to consume you in an approachable way. Text is great if you're a good copywriter, but it is not as good as video for most, because it is a better way of getting a feel, quote unquote, for the person who's actually the author. Once you get that, people will want to pay more attention, if they want to pay attention to your kind of thing. So you'll be divisive. It's inherent, because not everyone's going to like you. But what is important is that you are authentically yourself, as we all like to say, but that's because it's practical, because then people seem to fall into orbit around that, they like it, and then from those warmed people, you've now earned the right, as I said earlier, to actually ask for something. So hopefully that helps. B Gold Baby has asked, Richard, do you know a good or perhaps great Instagram bots? The thing is, there are so many out there. I think you want to watch it. With that, there is a backlash on Instagram from those who produce, for those who work with bots, because the fact is, you know, they can engage with people, but what you tend to find, I'm not talking about an Instagram bot. There's probably millions out there, but I'm talking about is the use of it as a start point. If your account, I'm trying to be practical and not offensive here, but if your account is so strong that you have so many people DMing you all the time, well then fine. The bots perhaps could produce a bit of something as a thanks for following and thanks for the first DM, I'll get to you as soon as I can kind of thing. As much as possible, you want to do this manually, because no bot will ever do better than you manually in terms of engaging with people, because you need to be there in the moment to be able to be agile and understand what they're saying. If there's any advice I can give, if you use bot or you don't use bot, let your first message be more of a connecting one, a hey, how's it going, a conversation starter, rather than check out my webinar. Oh, look at me, I'm giving you value. It's not any use at all. It's better just to have a normal conversation. Again, take your cues from the offline world. That's where I would start, and hopefully that helps a little bit. Big Gold Babies also added, we love your accent. Thank you very much, that's very kind. Presumably you're not English then. That means a lot to me. Mike Pertle, good to see you. Catherine Santani, I think we've been connected for years. Lovely to see you too. Thank you very much. Let's look at a couple more questions. So Karen Cooper has said actually she's asked a question based on someone else's, so let's do that one first. Carolina Mankowski, how do you start the communication with a cold prospect? Just a quick hello, commenting on something of theirs? Yes, both, mostly the latter. You get out what you put in. It's as simple as that. If you want a meaningful conversation with someone, put the effort in. If you want to get traction straight away in a world where people kind of roll their eyes when there's just it's just another, here we go, is someone who's cold trying to message me, it makes a lot more sense to give them something unique. It's sad, but it's a wonderful truth that you're a heck of a unique person if you write something that's specific about them. Go to their public profile, find something that's kind of obvious there that they've written there, so it's in public consumption, and share it based on that. Hi Carolina, I saw you run Serene Soul Studios, that's fantastic. Or I love your dog Seba, that's a lovely, gorgeous dog. How old is he? Or something like, how is she even, I think. Something like that, something that's specific. Because what's more important is building the relationship and the connection. If you want to get a deal with someone, then you need to have that relationship in place. It has to be there. So rather than go for the jugular first, take a slightly more patient route and build that first. If you build that first, then you'll actually be much more likely to move to a point where you're like, do you know what? We're actually in a place where we could ask for a deal now and get a meaningful answer, like a yes, rather than just trying it with everyone. So go early is the way I look at it. Always comment on something of theirs as well. Before I connect with someone, I normally comment on their on their content. For instance, I might go on LinkedIn. This is a person I want to connect with. I'll see they've done content last few weeks. I will be commenting for say 3 posts, and so what I want is to get a meaningful response from them and get a reply to my comment on their post. Show up for them. Now, once I've got a few responses, maybe 2. I'm familiar to them. So now what do you think happens now when I send through my connection request with a DM saying, hey, we've been connecting on your posts, okay? Just thought I'd connect, do a connection properly. Fantastic. You always get the exception. They always accept it rather, because you've actually bothered to show up for them first. So it's the reverse of what most people do. What most people do is connect. Then if the person at the end of the other side decides to accept, then you maybe write them a message, say thanks for that, then possibly you show up for their content. Do it the other way round completely and you'll always get accepted. But you'll also get accepted with someone running in your direction. Oh my God, thank you so much. Yeah, I love the comments you've written on my content. Thank you so much. And then guess what they're going to do? They'll start checking you out now, if they haven't already. And now you've got someone who is, because there's a difference between a connection and someone who wants to be in orbit around you, and that's a far better way of doing it. So that's what I would do. Carolina, when someone mentions my dog, it means so much. There you go. So the dog seems lovely. I hope it's recovering or recovered after its surgery a while back. So following on from Carolina's question, Karen then asked, to piggyback in that question, are you asking them questions? If you are and they only answer with one word, do you keep going? Yes, because your alternative is just to go at them non-stop with talking and text or whatever. There's a formula or a technique here, Karen, called Y times 3 equals the truth. Y is WHY. And so it's as simple as this. So if I ask someone a question and I get an answer, I want to ask another question that is a why-based question, so a kind of a, so why is that, or along those lines, based on the answer to their question, okay? And then I do one more. So I do 3 questions in total with answers from them, and I kind of follow down. The reason why is because you tend to get, especially with cold audience or cold connections, you tend to get a very pithy, maybe one-word answer to start with. Why? Because they're cold. That's all you've earned so far. So you should keep going. The reason why you do it 3 times is because the 3rd time you get more verbose answer. That's really where the juicy detail is. Any more than that, and now you start getting a bit irritating. Why? You start sounding like my 6-year-old daughter, right? But any less, you don't get down to the juicy detail. Now, here's the thing to remember. Some people might not give you much of an answer even on the 3rd level, but that's okay. You move on and do it again. And then so every time there's something brought up or a compliment or engagement of some kind, then ask them a question on it. You drill down. The point is building a conversation, right? So why, as in WHY times 3 equals the truth. Drill down. Keep doing it. But remember this. Not everyone's going to give you masses of detail. The reason why is some people's DNA includes don't talk much. Some people are just built like that. They just don't talk much. And that they're most effusive, they're still not talking much. So don't worry about it. But it's really important. So you drill down. But that's part of your process throughout the call or your text or whatever. That engagement's everything. Otherwise, because your alternative is just to talk at them or to write at them, now you're conditioning them that they won't be engaged or involved in this conversation, which is dangerous because you're shutting them down. You don't want to condition someone who might be conversing with you not to converse with you, because it's from the conversation that they will feel part of something. That familiarity and trust can blossom from there, and that's really where that relationship turns into something exciting, perhaps like a deal or whatever it might be. So that's my answer there. I hope that helps. A question here from Mona Nairi. Hello to you, Mona. Glad to hear you're feeling better. You've been ill recently, I believe, under the weather with a flu or something. How do you get your personality to shine through your content so that when people stumble across your page and message you, they feel comfortable talking with you already like they know you? Gary V does this well. So that's Gary Vaynerchuk, who is a social media runs a social media business, a media company, does this well. It's the perfect mix between his personality, personal life, and value. Well, look, what you're looking for is for people to feel like you're approachable and feel like they kind of know you in a way. And without question, the best way to do that is to meet them in face to face. Meeting people in person, however, is very impractical and not particularly efficient. However, it's very effective. So the next best thing is video like this. Video like this combined with live means that as you guys write stuff, I can engage with you one-on-one or directly as a group, and it means that there's something going on there. If everything is always typed as just text with no imagery or any kind of access to the person, it's much harder for the cold or audience or prospect to actually feel like they can engage with you and get to know you. It requires a lot of decision to go and do that on their part, and if you're not earned it, most people get turned off and don't bother unless your kind of text-based copywriting is on point. Okay, so to do this, what we need to do is share that you're a decent person. If you want to be really approachable to everyone, then be the kind of person that seems to be open and approachable. If you're posturing as the big man who's the big boss, and I'm always kind of moody and no one should come near me because I'm God and all that, what happens is that you may be positioning yourself as a superstar boss kind of guy in your eyes, and that might resonate with some people, but it does mean that you're not going to be so approachable. And again, for probably the millionth time, take your cues from the offline world. Just be normal, because that's what people really want. Fronting and posturing as someone who you're not, or to try and gain an audience, no one's ever been able to do it as well as the audience's ability to call bullshit on it. So I would say strongly urge you to not try and be someone you're not. Use video. It's a really good idea. I think also less planning and less scripting sounds counterintuitive, but actually it works really well. Nowadays, people are really probably quite well conditioned, I think. This is my feeling genuinely, but that by 2019, we've all been conditioned. The last 3-4 years have been really interesting. We've been bombarded with ads and social media gameplays to try and get us to do certain things. We've seen it all. And if we haven't seen it all, at least our subconscious has been coached that, we're being gamed or we're not. We don't know if we're not or are, but there's some kind of gut reaction to something. And so as a pushback, because we all can spot a mile off if it's junk or if it's spam or if it's a phishing message or something like that. So what we need to think is, what people really are after is the authentic rather than someone trying to game them. People hate to be sold to anyway, that's never changed. But recently, the last few years, we're so used to the funnels and the bro marketing, as it's called. And I think what matters is that the more you're just being normal and being you can get so much more from that, because people are like, oh, it's refreshing. This person's just being, straightforward and approachable. I don't overscript this. I ask for questions. I have them printed off so I don't forget them. I'm not going to memorize them. And then I just give my answers, and that's a nice way of just being normal and being approachable. if I scripted it, imagine if I tried to get laser pens out and do a slideshow on PowerPoint and, and then was all formal and had, and all the production in the world. It kind of doesn't work, because what we're after here is a bit of a chat. This is the equivalent of us just meeting at a bar and having a coffee and people asking questions. So I think it's important to play to that kind of space if you can. Pamela Bay, nice to see you jump on LinkedIn and on Facebook. And Erica Gutierrez, great to see you on Instagram as well. I hope you're well. Let's finish on one last question, or it looks like a few actually, from Lucy Cooper in London, in fact. How do you manage your, this is nothing to do with this topic, but it doesn't matter. How do you manage your time when your home is your office? And how do you stop yourself from work on Saturdays? What I do is I only come into this is an office in my house. I only come to this office when I have something to do in this office. Otherwise, I don't come into this office. So it is the live stream I run from here. I do video production from here, and I do Skype calls from here, and that's it. Otherwise, I will go elsewhere. I think it's very valuable to move around a lot. If I can work outside, I will. If it's a sunny day, I work in the garden. I have an office in the city. So in London, I will, in WeWork on Bishopsgate, I will just sit there and chill out that way instead, because I can work from the laptop. I like to, as much as possible, meet people if possible, so I can not be on this chair. It's not I have a problem with it, but I think it's good to be moving around the place a lot. I manage my time when my home is my office, much like I'd manage any other time. But the holy grail for me, contrary to what marketers might tell you, isn't financial freedom. That comes as a byproduct of doing something you really want to do, doing it really well. The holy grail for me is flexibility. So that I chase flexibility always. And the great thing about flexibility is, if you need to work, sure. If you have to work, sure. But if you also need to pivot out and not do something because, hey, we're going to go on holiday or whatever, or I'm going to have lunch with my wife or something like that, well, then you can. And I think flexibility is essential. So I plan using the when to do list approach, which builds in contingency for me doing things other than the actual work. But the when to do list is really simple. It's a list of stuff I'm going to do today, using the approach of customer acquisition first, essential things second, and then things to do with the business, the lines of work I'm in, comes third, and assigning a particular time to each of those tasks. So if it's post on Instagram, I know that's a 25-minute window I'll need for it because of the creative and so on. So I put in 25 minutes from 2 p.m. till 2:25 Instagram post, 2:25 to 2:35 make coffee, whatever it might be, and I build in that way. That's the way I do it. That way I can silo time to be in the office to do certain things, and I can go elsewhere and do other things as well. And how do you stop yourself working on Saturdays? Because I really don't want to work when I have a family with an amazing wife and 2 children. They are the win, and so it makes a lot of sense to be around them instead. That's very easy. It's also good to be kind of absolute with yourself. So if you set certain times to do certain things, that can help you follow through on it. What's interesting is that when you're scheduling and time managing and things like that, we often put a lot of effort into focusing on what things we think are important, like, oh, this meeting with this client or with this prospect is huge because that represents a load of money, therefore it's most important, so I must make sure I show up from that. Because our families arguably are there always, it's very tempting to say, do you know what, I'll get to them when I get to them. But if you make seeing your family, if that's important to you, playing video games, if that's important to you, doing cookery, if that's important to you, or whatever it is you want to have the flexibility to enjoy spending time around, if you make that as mandatory as a business meeting, it means that you're scheduling all things in the right way. So for instance, having a nap, or I remember 2014 actually, I decided I was going to read something every day because I never read at all. Now I read masses and masses of stuff, but every day I dip in at least 10 minutes and read, and that is scheduled because otherwise it doesn't get done. If it's, oh, when I get round to it, I'll do it, you just don't do stuff. So schedule things and then they happen. That's the way I work with it. That's my take on it. So hopefully that helps, Lucy. Philip, nice to see you on Instagram. Thanks so much for jumping in here as well. Also, Lucy's asked, how do you decide that you wanted to work for yourself and how did you get the balls to do it? I'm not a kind of a rags to riches, oh, life was so hard kind of thing. I had £10 in my wallet. None of that. I was actually doing really well in the city. I decided that 80-hour work weeks wasn't what I wanted to do. And I remember thinking, kind of a moment of clarity, thinking, if I was paid triple this money, I wouldn't want to do it. Because I was getting grey skin, I was really like exhausted, and I wasn't anyone on the weekends. If anything, I was doing more work. And so instead I was like, just time to pivot out, and I was like 30 odd, and I'm just pleased I did it. How I got balls to do it? I had to. There was no two ways about it, and there was no dialogue, because I had a wife and a very young child at the time. There was no kind of, oh, I hope it works out. It is working out. It's going to work out. So you just got to do it, because otherwise, where's the money come from? That's that. Sorry. And so there were plenty of nights early on where it's like, right. So I have to I remember one night where it's like, I need £1,000 I think it was like by the end of the week, I need £1,000. So no sleep, just do it. And rather than pining over things and going, oh, I wonder if it will work out, or I'm worried about success. Just do it. Just take action and get on with it. And the more you take action, the less you have time to worry, is what I seem to find, to be honest. Friday's last day at work. Congrats, Philip. Best wishes with it all. Let me know how that goes. I'm going to finish there. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. It's been really good fun. Love having so many people watching here. It was an absolute pleasure. So cheerio on Instagram. I'm going to shut off there and end the live video. Thanks so much listening on the podcast. And also thank you, everyone, on Facebook. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you enjoy your week, whatever you're up to. And if you're watching on in the Entrepreneur Business Group next Tuesday on the 19th at 6 p.m. or 6:30 London time, you'll be able to watch the London Entrepreneur Business Live on effective online networking with Pelpina Tripp, Jamie Searle from Brave Bison, and myself. I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks so much. Have a great week. Catch you soon.